Ask questions and never assume you have all the answers. Listen and listen again. Create, make art, tell your story. Read and read widely. Know that no one else can define you. You are not responsible for others' ignorance or hate. You can always be respectful without worrying about being nice. And you have every right to smile and enjoy who you are. You don't have to smile. Listen and listen again. Read and read widely. Hi, I'm Jerri Heid, your Services Manager at the Ames Public Library. Welcome to a special edition of Well Read. Reading widely is something that we do at the Ames Public Library. All the staff, the community of Ames does as well. And one of the widely read books that we've had, not only is a movie from the book, but she is becoming a very prolific writer, Angie Thomas, The Hate You Give. So Tanvi, tell me about your feelings about this book and how we read and read widely and hear our voices.
So The Hate You Give has been hugely popular, both in Ames and just across the country and probably globally as well, for a very good reason. It's a book about a girl named Star, and Star sort of straddles two different worlds. She comes from like a poor black community, but then during the day she goes to this very elite, wealthy private school where most of her classmates are white. And so she sort of struggles with who am I when I'm at home and who am I when I'm at school, and I don't really quite feel like I'm the same person in both places. She manages it fairly well until the night when her best friend Khalil is shot by the police and dies. So it's about a girl who is sort of discovering who she is while dealing with this really tragic event and trying to figure out where her power is as the person who witnessed it and what do I do? How do I address it when I'm so traumatized?
And listening to what the community wants her to do,
right,
and the different
listening
communities.
to what the community wants her to do, her family, her friends at home, but then the people she's at school with, and they don't all agree. They don't all want her to do the same thing, and they don't all see the event the same way. When it comes to reading widely, I think this book is hugely important because, unfortunately, this is something that happens. That's exactly why I actually have a huge love-hate relationship with this book. I love it because it's important. Like, we need to understand how it affects people when things like this happen. I hate it that it has struck such a chord, especially with Black people, because things like this shouldn't be happening, and
Correct.
They are.
They should be just fiction.
Right.
And they're not.
Right.
It's, I have a love-hate relationship with that too, but the family she has is fairly perfect. Well, it's perfect. You know, that they're living both worlds and succeeding in both worlds and wanting to change the world, and their interaction with this teenage daughter isn't a reaction that I had with my teenage daughter. Let's just say it that way.
They trust her and they support her.
Yeah. But she doesn't really do teenage things necessarily. I mean, when the book starts, she is doing something that, you know, that isn't necessarily what a teen should be doing, and that's not what she told her parents type of thing. But, you know, that the whole story, that part of it, that wasn't as realistic to me, but the story is powerful.
Yes. Well, and she's
powerful.
also forced to grow up very quickly.
Yes, yeah.
For a variety of reasons.
Yeah, that struggle that we all have, like, who am I? What voice do I have?
Yep.
And when and where do I use that voice?
Yep.
And Bree, did you have...
Yeah, it was a phenomenal book. I loved it. I completely agree that I didn't necessarily think it was totally realistic. But it was really interesting because, so she is the only witness to this thing that happens, but obviously it's huge news and people around her are talking about it and discussing it, and they don't know that she's this person. And so for her to see what these people are actually really thinking, because they don't know she's involved, and then when they find out she is, how they change their tune, and it's very enlightening about the human spirit in general. And that's not no matter what race you are, people change depending on who they think they're talking
Right.
to. And I think it was really impactful about how she figured out how to find her voice and what, she's living in these two worlds. These two things are happening, and how do I find that medium and be who I need to be in this area? And I thought it was very well done.
And how do you speak up when it's hard?
Right.
That's
Right.
I think that's a question that a lot of us struggle with at
Yeah,
some point.
people can tell you, well, you need to defend or, stand up for someone or stand up for something, but when it actually happens.
And when there could be
you-
real consequences.
Yeah.
And yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And there are always some of them are more drastic
Yeah.
than others.
And it's so complicated. Like, none of these issues there's a right and a wrong. Like, there are multiple sides to every issue, and you really have to figure out where you fall. Where's your line, and what are you going to defend? And that's a hard thing to come to terms with, especially when you're a teenager and the world is constantly changing around you.
Yeah. That what you were going
I
to
Sorry.
was going to say. Especially when you're a teenager.
Well, the other thing that, I have a biracial granddaughter that has learned how to drive, and the part that they talk about, keep your hands on the wheel, don't, just listen to the officer and say yes sir, no sir, that type of thing. Whenever she's driving or whenever she's going out by herself, that's what I'm thinking is like, wow, to live in that fear constantly of being treated incorrectly by others, especially when, he wasn't doing anything wrong at all, just getting a hairbrush, but how quickly that can go wrong. So, The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. So let's talk about these people that I have next to me today, are experts here at the Ames Public Library, and I'm sure that you've seen them around the building some. So, and Tanvi, I kind of talked about you already, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been here at the library?
Yeah. So I'm Tanvi. I've been working for Ames Public Library for 6 years, which I can't believe it's already been 6 years. Yeah. And I am the teen librarian, so I work in the youth department, but specifically with kids in grades 6 through 12.
And we'll just go on down.
I'm Danielle. I've been here for 10 years this upcoming August.
Which is unbelievable as well.
Yeah. I was, what? How long? But yes, I'm a youth services librarian. Right now I'm working quite a bit with babies, and I also buy picture books and board books, and I try to read really widely, all this stuff.
I'm Bree Anderson, a youth services librarian, and I'm also the administrator to the Project Smiles program, which goes out to daycares and preschools around Ames and brings the library out into the community as well. So, and I select for juvenile graphic novels and chapter books and stuff, and it's been really, really fun to see some new titles and new publishers that are really getting on board with.
And new authors.
Yes,
new
and authors and
illustrators.
stuff that are being,
Yeah.
that are able to get into the market now.
Yeah, the publishing world is definitely changing. It has a ways to go,
Yes.
but it's changing. And when we talk about selecting, that means that they purchase with our Ames Public Library budget different collections. So juvenile fiction, juvenile nonfiction, young adult fiction, nonfiction, picture books, beginner readers, all those things that you find in the youth services department and are picked out, chosen by these three experts here. So they have done an excellent job of keeping our collection diverse and inclusive. And with that said, shall we go to another person's favorite book? Since this was Hate You Give was all of our person's books. Does anyone, shall we start
Yes, I think
with
that's another
Dreamers?
one that we all
Everyone's
agree on,
looking
yep.
at this one. And Dreamers is a fantastic picture book. And Danielle, would you like to
Sure.
speak to it?
So it is written and illustrated by Yui Morales, and she's done some beautiful, beautiful work over the years. She's an amazing artist and a good author as well. And this is one that it's telling loosely based on the story of her and her young son, who, when he was 3 or 4 months old, they moved to the United States to be with Kelly's father. And it's just about them learning about the United States and trying to figure out who they are now that they've moved. There are new rules, and they're still trying to hold on to themselves. And it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. And it's interesting now that her son is older. I've read articles and she's back in Mexico now.
So one of my favorite pages is where they find refuge in the library with all the variety of things. Nothing personal here. No biases with this. But the illustrations are fabulous. And
I think the illustrations are just absolutely gorgeous. And there's so many symbolic things that she's woven in here that are personal reactions to her and about her culture and how it blends with our culture here in America and all that kind of thing. I think all of us were really shocked that this year at the Youth Media Awards, this one didn't win more than it did, because it's just absolutely gorgeous.
So Dreamers, the ones that they were talking about that did win is called Hello Lighthouse. So let's have a little conversation about our Caldecott winner, Hello Lighthouse.
So Caldecott is based on the illustrations of the book, so more so than the words. And so this one is really unique in how she did it. It's not one that I think any of us had on our radar,
No.
but it's gorgeous. And she has this very unique style with the line drawings and stuff.
And it's historical fiction, so I'm already predisposed to like it. I like historical fiction. And it's just about life and living as a lighthouse keeper. And it's just all the blues are beautiful. And
she's got a definite theme of circles and circular things. The lighthouse is very cylindrical and stuff. And she works that in a lot to the illustrations. The waves are very circular, and some of the pictures, she has them broken up into sections, in very circular sections and stuff. And so there's kind of the quilt on the bed has circles on it. So it's very thematic throughout, but all of it ties together to kind of circle of life and all of that thing that, it's very well done.
For you quilters out there, it's a Dresden plate. It's a very pretty quilt.
See, so the illustrator has obviously done her research.
And I liked in some of the reviews and stuff, they talk about that it's a different perspective, actually the author writes about that usually you think of a lighthouse and what it does for the sea.
Yeah.
And this is actually the inside workings of a lighthouse, and from the inside out what that lighthouse person does. And how they live. And it's one of those things that you just think happens and you don't think about how it actually worked. And now, of course, with technology, they're non-existent. That when you talked about the historical fiction, she has this really unique end pages where she's talking about the history of lighthouses as well. So it is a very good book and a very well illustrated book, but I think we all had our hearts on Dreamers just because we
there's a lot about libraries and
there's a lot about library. Although they read a lot of books.
That's true.
So
what else do you do when you're stuck in a lighthouse all day?
That's right.
It's not even you can't even leave that lighthouse. It's
and months in between the boats coming in and giving you food. The food is what I worried about. It's like, what if you ran out of food? In that time period, there's no food there. So, next.
Should we do Seeing Into Tomorrow?
Yes, that sounds like a good one to do. And why did you choose that one, Danielle?
So not only do I love Wright's poetry, so it's a book of haiku. And it is then the haiku was chosen, and the photographs were taken by Nina Cruz, who is a classic photographer of children's books. And she is also Donald Cruz, if you are familiar with Freight Train, a fantastic classic picture book. But she's also his daughter-in-law. So for one of the pages, there's a poem about a train, and so she took a picture of her father-in-law and his grandson, her son, by watching a train go by. And so I just love that. I've told every single person I ran into for like a week that story. So now all of Ames knows.
So it's interesting as to how people do the illustrations. This realistic photographs is a very unique style too in a lot of the picture books, and obviously hasn't always been as well done as this particular book is done too.
And the other thing that I read in an article that she wrote, so it's all about nature and being outside, and she really wanted African American boys, because she's the mother of sons, and oftentimes they're not shown in natural and outside settings. So it's it's an awesome book that way as well.
I agree, and having the real pictures is so valuable in pictures, because most of what's out there are illustrated things, and that's not a bad thing, but for children to actually see the real world around them in the books that they read is so valuable. So, and that one's very well done.
So speaking about finding the real world out there, there are different ways that we can do that too. And especially for a toddler or an infant or a preschooler, you can use this to find the sun. And
But maybe not look directly at the
yeah, that's true. Yeah, you have to be careful.
You just need to find something yellow.
Yep.
Right.
Like
So
Right. That's the whole
hold,
thing.
hold it up.
Find
so
red.
Everybody red. We got kind of a red.
And you have your shapes.
So yeah,
go
just
along with
some
that.
awesome die cuts in there, and just to find what's around the
That's
world, the different colors, and a very interesting way of doing a color book.
A
for
concept
sure.
book, yeah. So that's a find colors in your world, which all books can help you find that too as well. So should we go to, let's see, Hey Kittle. We'll go very serious again.
It's very serious.
Very, very serious. But that's what books are all about as well. They are for fun, for reading for fun and pleasure, and they're also for reading to know your world and see what the world is like. And in this case, we're seeing the world through the author's eyes
Through the
and
author's,
his experiences throughout his life.
It's funny because I take that one to the middle school a lot, and I tell the kids, like, this is going to be a really sad book, and be honest, like, it's not really happy at all, and it flies off the shelf. So many kids come in and check it out. So it's a graphic memoir, so it's based off of the author's real life. He's a really famous graphic novelist. He's done the Lunch Lady books and Jedi Academy books. So it's just about his childhood. It starts out with like his kindergarten teacher telling him to draw a picture of his family and his mom and his dad, which is really hard for him. He struggles because he doesn't actually live with his mom and his dad. His mom is a drug addict, so she's in and out of his life. He has no idea who his father is. And so he lives with his grandparents, which is fine. Like they're decent grandparents, but that's got its own whole host of issues as well. And the way that he processes his experiences and deals with the trauma in his life is by creating art. It starts out as something fun, and it becomes something that's actually a passion for him. And I like to share that one with kids because, A, it's just cool to show them, like, you can take something hard in your life and make something amazing out of it. But it's also, I think a lot of kids struggle with the idea of what does the family look like. It's easy when your family kind of looks like everyone else's, but as someone who grew up in a family with just a single parent, and other kids are constantly like, where's your dad? What happened to your dad? And you're like, I don't want to tell you. Like, that's not really any of your business. It's hard. Like, it's hard for kids to answer those questions sometimes. And so to see it, not only in a book format, but as someone's real story and someone that a lot of them know because they've read his other books is can be really powerful.
Yeah, it was very compelling.
Yes.
Very compelling. You used the term graphic novels. Would you mind explaining that for our public?
Yeah, so a graphic
watchers.
novel is sort of like a comic book where the story is told through text, but also largely through pictures. And the pictures play a huge part in pushing the forward story and depicting things that maybe aren't in the text itself. So emotions, places, things like that.
The great thing about graphic novels is there are so many fewer words. So those words really mean more. They carry a lot more weight because they're very specifically chosen, because there's not, I mean, the picture drives the story, and so the words fill in, and so they're very, very intentional.
And it's you know, a lot of times you hear people saying that that's not really reading, but it is. You're just reading it in a very different way because it requires a different skill set to read a picture, and that can be just as important as reading a text.
And studies show that there's actually more rare words in the ratio in graphic novels than there are in regular chapter books. So you're learning more vocabulary in such a...
And rare words are not words like a, and the, and said. They're words that are great vocabulary words. So if your child is reading a graphic novel, encourage that because, like you said, it is a unique reading experience. And I always am interested because it's taken me a little while to get onto the graphic novel. I'm a very visual person, and you would think it would be, or at least I think it should be an easy thing for me to do, but it takes a while for my reading skills to be able to pick up on this. But our struggling readers and our readers that they just like fly through. It's amazing to watch, and they get it. I mean, it's not like they're not comprehending what they're getting.
Learning. I mean, there's something to be said about looking at a picture of someone and figuring out what they're feeling, and that's a skill that really translates into the real
empathy,
world.
being able to react to what the other person is doing,
and read body language and stuff that way and stuff. Yep. And the publishing world is responding to that as well, and they're now producing. Authors are coming forward with some fabulous books. Some of them are very serious, some of them are very light. We've got science comics and historical fiction, and they run the gamut. So every kid who can find a chapter book to read can find a graphic novel that matches. So
well, and I'm amazed, like the Babysitters Club books that were so popular when I first started in the library world are now out on graphic novel form. So it's like,
I'm waiting for all 180 of them.
Yeah, I wonder if that would happen. So
we have another graphic novel over there too that
this
not
one right here.
on
Sorry.
the serious side.
Yeah.
This is one of the fun ones, but it was my favorite from this last year. This is Sanity and Tallulah, self-titled for the girls that are on the cover. They live out in the vast part of space, on the edge of space, in a space station, and they are just girls who go to school every day and things like that, but they are uber smart, and one of them decides to use some matter that they find around and their scientific processes that they're working through, and creates a three-headed kitten. And then all hell breaks loose on the space station, and guess who's going to get blamed for it? And so they're on this mission to try to find the cat, because the cat escapes, and what is actually going on with their space station before it breaks down and bad things happen. So it's this fabulous story of two girls who are very different, who become friends, trying to prove yourself in a situation, and defend the decisions that you have made that have led to maybe some consequences that you weren't anticipating, and finding your place in how you fit in with this bigger picture of how everything works.
And I enjoyed the part, well, not enjoyed, but it was interesting in the part where they have limited food source, and yet this three-headed cat is like consuming all this food, and they're using, she's using her rations for the cat to make it happen in the incubator. And it's a great science fiction type.
It's awesome to see girls and in science related roles in books, and this is a perfect example of, girls can be astronauts, and they can be scientists, and they can be engineers.
The first in a series.
Yeah.
So there's more to come about all these space adventures.
Ties in nicely to the summer reading program this year.
Yes, very, very much so. So, what would you like to do next? Speaking of space, shall we keep going with the space theme?
Great.
A big mooncake for Star, which is another great story too. Another one that I'm not quite sure how come it didn't.
It did get an honor. It got a Caldecott honor this year, which is like, I don't know, second place. It's a huge deal. It is. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's so good. It's so beautiful.
It is. Yep.
It's about a little girl who, and it never comes right out and says this, but her name is Little Star, and she lives in the sky with her mother, and they make a big moon cake, and she just nibbles away at it.
Every night, yep, she goes over and she takes another bite and another bite. And eventually...
And what does that represent? Yeah. Does anyone have an idea? Where'd it go?
It's a gorgeous telling about the phases of the moon, and cool. This kind of this folk tale, fairy tale-ish feeling about how...
Yeah, and Gracelyn has said, it's not based on a traditional fairy tale or folk tale at all, but she wanted it to have that feeling, and it definitely does.
Yeah.
And I love it.
And that author, Gracelyn, she does some wonderful work all throughout the different age levels as well.
She's got some chapter books and picture books.
And a great author that likes to reflect that mirror and the window image and the sliding door. So seeing ourselves and seeing others and growing ourselves. So it is a great book. And you're also going to see this summer through some of the programming that will be happening, because moons are part of the universe as well. Yeah. So I think we want to go back in history and with dinosaurs and lighten up our little story here.
Well, you can say that we're going to lighten up this book. So this is Dactyl Hill Squad, and it's the first in a juvenile chapter book series. And I read it, and I picked it up, and I'm like, dinosaurs, Civil War. Awesome. This is for me. And I read it, and it was definitely for me at the end. But there was a lot more seriousness going on throughout. The author is a really talented author. He's written some YA stuff. He's also written some adult stuff. But it's basically set in New York City during the Civil War. But they're dinosaurs, and people use them it's kind of like, think of, the old show, The Flintstones. You've got, they all ride, instead of having a bus, the kids at the orphanage, the main characters at the orphanage, they all hop on the back of a really big dinosaur, and that's how they get around. And it's amazing. But at the same time, it's really going to bring up some different perspectives. The main characters are all African American, and many people may not know this, but there were riots in New York City during the Civil War when African Americans were attacked, because the people did not think that they should be fighting this war for these people. And it's horrifying to think back, because what you learn in history class is that, everyone in the North, wanted to go. Yeah. That's not how the world works, and it's a very, very sad thing. So it's got some great discussion. It's got some great historical things. But you're also being chased around on dinosaurs. And our main character, she is great. She's she's Cuban, African American. No. Afro-Cuban. Thank you. I'm like, that doesn't work in my head. Afro-Cuban. And so the whole book, she's kind of worrying about where her brothers are, where her sisters are, because her brother is in the Union Army, and her sisters disappeared years ago. And as we read the book, it turns out that they were kidnapped back into slavery. Oh, wow. So heavy. But great.
Funny.
Yeah, he did a good job of doing both. High action. I definitely recommend it for a lot of kids. I think you might be seeing, if I have my way, you guys might be seeing it on a battle list next year.
Oh, all right. So, Dactyl Hill Squad, and it is part of a series as well, or will be part of a series. So, talking about dinosaurs, we have to talk about the Itchy book and our dinosaurs in this story.
So, Liu Pham is one of my favorite illustrators of all time. I love her. And this is also then part of the Elephant and Piggy Reads series. So Mo Willems has kind of, his books are so popular, the Elephant and Piggy ones. I mean, they are the top 20 books checked out in our beginning readers are all Elephant and Piggy. They're great. So he's kind of taken that and like sponsored other authors, basically. And encouraged them to write books in a similar style and feel to the Elephant and Piggy books. And this is one of them. So he's, Dan Santad and all kinds of these other authors are jumping on board and doing this. And so this is one that has that feel, just a couple characters, speech bubbles, in very much that style that kids are really drawn to, kind of like beginning graphic novel-esque, those sections and things that they're looking at. But this is just a super funny one that, these two kids have an adventure about an itch, and what are they going to do about it?
And I think the end of the story is so much like real life because we're not paying attention to the world around us.
Yes.
And when they, so it's all about, dinosaurs don't itch, and you don't itch with other people. But then it ends, let's see, dinosaurs don't scratch alone. So it's just a very funny book with lots of great interaction as far as conversation with the book as well. So, Tanvi, would you like to choose your last book?
Sure. Can I see what I have over there?
Yeah. I have a strange feeling I know what one it's going to be.
Let's go with Front Desk.
That's exactly the one I thought it was going to be.
So Front Desk is in our juvenile chapter book section, but it's kind of a middle grade. It could I take it to the middle school, and it could kind of go up through like 6th, 7th grade. It's about a girl who has immigrated to the United States with her parents from China. And she sort of has an interesting housing situation. She doesn't live in a house or a townhouse or a trailer or anything like that. She lives in a motel. Her parents work at the motel. It's owned by a not so nice person, but they get by. And the main character is like 10 or something, and she's got like a couple of secrets. One of them is that despite child labor laws, she works in the motel and she staffs the front desk. And through that, she just meets a lot of really interesting people. One of the other secrets is that her family, her parents sort of smuggle in other immigrants who have nowhere to go to stay in the motel, knowing that if the owner finds out, they're out on the street. And this is their livelihood, so that's a big deal. I love this book because my mom is an immigrant. I'm the first person in our family to be born in the United States. And it rings so true to me that it's immigrants taking care of other immigrants. A lot of people come to the United States, people especially who clearly are foreigners, who look like foreigners, who sound like foreigners, don't always get help from other people. And it's hard. It's hard to be in a whole new place. And in my experience, it was just immigrants helping other immigrants. My mom was a very kind of keep your head down and just do what you need to do to get by. But she was always, always helping other people that she knew had just come to the United States. And I love that about this book. The other cool thing is that it's sort of loosely based on the author's real experiences. So in the book, she struggles with her English. She really desperately wants to be a writer, but her parents are like, and her teachers are like, because she's not that great of an English language speaker. Turns out she can write because she published a book. She also went to college when she was 13. So she goes to Berkeley, which is sort of insane. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. And so I love taking that book to the schools and telling kids, like, she was terrible at English and she did this. So A, you can do this. And B, if you hear people who don't speak English that great, you have no idea what's going on in their heads.
Right. And what they can accomplish. And so.
Well,
thank you, ladies, for helping me share the books that we are reading widely here in the Ames community. And I just want to leave our viewers with a few statistics that the CCBC, which is a great nonprofit in the University of Wisconsin that studies books and what is in the publishing world, children's books, and looking at what the publishing field is doing, much what we were talking about, the diversity, the inclusion. But this is based on the 2017 books. These are what we've shared are all 2018, but this type of statistic isn't available yet. So there were, the CCBC received 3,700 books, children's books, board books through young adult. They had 336 of those books had significant African or African American content and characters, but only 100 of them were Black authors. 67 books had significant American Indian and First Nation content characters, and only 34 of them were American Indian authors. 309 books were significant Asian Pacific American content characters, but only 119 of those were authors or illustrators of Asian Pacific heritage. And 212 books of the 3,700 books were Latino content and characters, and only 70 of those books were authored by Latino authors. So while we are moving in the right direction and having our authors of color and authors that have been not very good in English write books and storybooks and reflect our window and our mirror, we're moving forward, and it's a great time, I believe, to be in the publishing world, or at least on this end, to be able to share those and to match what we're reading widely with in our community and the diversity that we have. So try some of these out, come in and ask the experts, and enjoy reading widely in our community.